All right. What is up, dude?
Hello.
I am great,
What
man.
up? How
I'm
you
great. Everything
doing?
look all right? Sound all right on your end?
Yeah, everything does. My Wi-Fi has been kind of spotty lately, so if it,
You
I
know,
might have to cut it off at some
I,
point.
I've
But
been having the same
everything's
issue.
been, yeah.
I go and I have to go and every once in a while turn it on or turn it off or either way, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have some fun, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm ecstatic, man. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Totally.
Thanks for
So,
having me, man. I appreciate it.
having the opportunity, hearing the new Creeping Death, kind of digging into that, that's going to be the focus. Prior to that, I kind of wanted to get into, some things as far as myself being a drummer, and you being the drummer, Creeping Death, Fugitive, others. You're a beast, man. Your playing is absolutely ripping. First and foremost, kind of, when you're growing up and you're young at mind, where are you hearing things that are really popping out to you? From maybe friends, family that you started, like, oh, this is kind of sick, building an interest in your own music.
As far as like building an interest in my own music, I would say like it started off very like just like going to see a lot of my friends' bands and stuff like locally. I feel like around the time I got out of high school, I immediately like moved to the Dallas Fort Worth area and just started going to like hardcore shows, and that's where I met everyone in Creeping Death and everyone in Fugitive and everything. Um, as far as like starting to play drums and stuff, my dad also played drums. That's kind of how I wanted to start doing it. I would see like pictures of him playing drums and stuff when I was younger, and it was always like just really cool to see it. He ended up buying me my first drum set when I
Oh,
was,
damn.
I want to say 9. Um, and I've been just kind of playing ever since, and just started playing in bands as soon as
Now,
I was
so
able
like
to.
you
So yeah.
had, I mean, even at like even young, you had like a local like music scene going. That was something that was drawing you in then.
And that didn't come until maybe I was like more out of high school, because I didn't live like super close to like the like Metroplex area or whatever. And I knew about a lot of the bands, but I couldn't really
Oh,
go to the
okay,
shows
got
because I
ya.
was kind of far away. But I didn't really like start like frequently going to shows and like meeting people and stuff until probably
Oh,
like
okay, got it.
2014,
Okay, yeah.
2015-ish, I feel like.
And my thing was
Yeah.
like always discovering bigger bill, like concerts versus like shows, first. And so like it's always interesting as far as like people, at a young age finding a local, like
Yeah.
music scene and kind of getting, like pulled into that. But your dad playing, so like, did you see at a young age him like playing live,
Yep.
or was this kind of like post that and he was just, jamming at the house and getting you introduced to the drums?
It was post that. I feel like he kind of like he played in a band in like the 80s and 90s, and around the time I was born was when like he kind of like, I don't want to say stopped playing drums, like he got rid of his drum set, like all this stuff. And then when I wanted to start playing drums, I feel like that kind of like
Mhm.
got him back into it in a way. Um which is really cool. And then like as I was growing up, like starting to play drums more, like he started another band and I went and saw him play more like middle school like era, but I was still playing drums for a little bit. I wasn't in any bands yet when that was
Okay.
happening,
Now,
but it was
I
really
mean,
cool to see
even
too.
having that early,
Yeah.
focus of like, having somebody, close to you inspired, where were you finding yourself as far as specific musicians and bands? Maybe you're listening to something like Rush and you're like, how is this drummer doing this? Or maybe you're listening to Kiss and there's something about the vocal style. Like, do you remember anything as far as a specific member in the band that was drawing you and wondering how they were doing, what they were doing?
Yeah, so like from my dad influences, I guess he was a
Okay.
big Kiss guy,
Yeah.
so I kind of became a big Kiss guy. Peter Criss was huge on that, obviously. On my own, I feel like the drummers that I like was younger and I saw and was like, how the hell are they doing that? It was like Chris Adler
Oh,
and
man.
Joey Jordison, and then Dave Lombardo as well were like 3 big ones when I was really, really young. Um, I definitely tried, like, when I was first starting to play drums, like, trying to play Slipknot songs, and obviously I could not, but I was like, how
Yeah.
in the hell is he doing this? It was probably pretty entertaining to watch, I can imagine,
It's
but
funny. I mean, you mentioned that too. Like,
yeah.
did you ever watch that Iowa, or right around when Iowa was releasing that like live video that they did? I can't even remember what it was called. Yeah,
The
yeah.
DVD, the
Disaster
Disaster
Pieces.
Pieces
So
thing?
there.
Yeah, that one and the one after it, like, I can't remember the name of the one after. I still have it somewhere
I
over here, but yeah, those
remember
2 I was
specifically
huge
that
on.
Disaster Pieces. There's a special feature where it was like in the, kind of behind the scenes, and Joey didn't have his mask on, and he was just farting around, like literally just diddling and going miles past anything I could ever go, like speed wise. I'm just like, how does he do this? Like, this is insane. And he's just messing around.
Yeah, literally. I remember there was one part in, I don't know if it was Disaster Pieces or one after it, but like they would blur their faces when they didn't have the masks on or whatever. And there was like 1 second where Joey's face wasn't blurred, and I remember like trying to find it and being like, is that him? Like, they would have blurred that if it wasn't him. Like, I was freaking out about it.
I love that. I mean, within,
so
like you mentioned, like Dave Lombardo and like some of these other players too, like, and you learning drums and kind of playing, where were, some kind of key moments as far as, you noticing like development in your playing, and maybe picking up, being able to play a Slipknot song or a certain Slayer song where you finally got down kind of like a lick?
Man, kind of hard to put a finger on exactly when that would have been, but like, I definitely like was just every single day, like just practicing as long as I was allowed to. And it's like playing drums in a house in a neighborhood, like neighbors weren't very fond of it for a little bit. Yeah. But, I mean, my dad didn't care, like, obviously, because he was a drummer too, but like, I was just going in as long as I could, as many days in a row as I could, basically. Very early on in having a drum set, the neighbors did come over and were like, hey, you need to stop playing, because it was like kind of late. I do remember that specifically. It's kind of funny. But yeah, like I feel like I was just consistently going at it for so long. I can't really think of when I was like, okay, now I'm getting it, because I just kept going. Like I just kept trying to
Where do
practice.
you get introduced to playing with others? You have this interest, you have something that you're playing. You mentioned, the kind of some buddies that you had, but as far as meeting up with somebody and actually like playing for the first time, maybe even making a first band, how does that come about?
Okay, so I can give you a few different instances. The first person I ever played in a room with, like me playing drums and someone else playing guitar, was my friend. His name is Justin, and he was like a family friend of mine. Like my parents and his parents went to like high school together, but like they, my parents moved away, they stayed there, and like when they met up again, like me and him jammed like once or twice at like a party that our parents threw or something. One of the first bands I played in was also like my parents' friends, and they needed a drummer for a couple of shows, so I just started doing it. And I think I don't even remember how old I was. I think I was like 15 or 16 when I did that. And then around the same time, there was a band in Dallas that was all people like my age that needed a drummer, and a bunch of like, we had like a bunch of mutual friends, and everyone was like, Lincoln should play in this band because he's just on age alone. And I didn't live close to Dallas at the time, but my dad would like drive me back and forth to Dallas for like practice and stuff for that band too. It was pretty cool.
Not a sacrifice for that.
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half trip.
Dude,
yeah.
There's like people right now, where like I look into, like someone who's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of, like Boston area, and then we travel over, like states. I'm just like, holy shit, man, like is it compared? Or like recently talking to some cats that are like in Colorado, Denver area, they go to LA and coming back and forth. I'm just like, golly, dude. Like that's insane.
That's crazy. Yeah, for a little bit too, actually. It's kind of funny. I was filling in for a band from Boston, and I would go out there a lot to practice. Actually.
Okay, dang. Now, are you still playing with them?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, they have a drummer. His name's James Davis, but he's like their actual drummer now. I was never actually in that band. I just filled in a bunch. But I mean, those are like my brothers.
Shout out to them for sure. What about as far as your first recording? So maybe it's just like over like a tape player or something like that. But how do you get something to where your playing is on and you actually physically are able to hold it? Like bring us back to that moment.
So, okay, the first recording I was actually on, I actually don't have a physical copy of. It was that band that my dad would drive me back and forth of. They were called Exploder, but I ended up like leaving the band before the album came out. And the album took a long time to record because they kind of did it themselves. The bass player for that band was like going to school for recording, and they put out the CDs. I never really got one, but the first physical recording that I recorded that I held was Wretched Illusion.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of funny. Yeah, I was like a really big vinyl guy too, and that was the first thing that got pressed on vinyl that I was on, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I can't believe I finally did it.
That rule. And it's funny that you mentioned that too, because like earlier recordings, I had maybe, like there was stuff online or maybe like CDs, but they weren't ever like official. And then up until like maybe the last like 5-10 years, something being pressed to like vinyl, and growing up with that and grandparents that were really into vinyl, that's kind of like a key moment to, like, holy shit, maybe I didn't make it as far as, like playing a stage, like System of a Down is that, but getting on a vinyl, like, I'm like, it's sick. It's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it was a big moment for me.
Now, as far as, your first time traveling out of town, maybe something going on a tour, maybe this is something even we can bring, with Creeping Death. Bring us back to those moments. And, like, did anything go awry? Did anything go wrong that was learning moments?
Um, I can't think of anything crazy like wrong that went off the first time. The first time I ever like went out of town to play show, like a tour, quote unquote. I filled in for this band from Dallas called Pulled Under, and actually the original drummer for Creeping Death played drums in that band too, and I was filling in for him because he had like a tonsil surgery or something like that. I can't really remember, but I filled in for like 4 days. It was like 3 Texas days and an Oklahoma day, and we just piled in the vocalist's car for all 4 days. And then the first tour I did with Creeping Death was also only like 4 or 5 days, I feel like. We did like some Midwest days and like an Oklahoma day and some other stuff. And we got in Eric's Forerunner and did all the days in that. Just hooked up a trailer to his car. That was kind of interesting. Thinking about that too. Nothing like went. Creeping Death has definitely taken like some major like L's on tour, I would say, and surprisingly nothing went wrong during those few like first few tours. Like nothing like the first time I can think of, like we started probably our first quote unquote headline tour, which was before the LP even came out, when everything was still very like we were just playing in like only DIY venues basically. And I remember like we started the drive, and the second we got into Louisiana, I was always kind of scared to go through Louisiana because I got a ticket there a long time ago and I never paid for it. So I was like, I don't want to drive in Louisiana anymore. And the second we crossed in and I was driving, our like back tire blew up, and I was like, cool, this is a good omen to start this tour on. I love this. It's like, I don't want to be here, and now we're stuck here.
Oh man. No, and like, it's something too, where not having those negative experiences at first, like it makes it a little bit easier to kind of get out. It's where, you spend years on the road and then like the detrimental things start happening. It's like, why couldn't we go through this earlier on? Like, why is this happening now? It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, literally. Like I said, we definitely have taken some L's, but nothing like catastrophic. Like our trailer getting stolen didn't happen until like last year.
I mean,
so,
even going, so
it's okay. We got it all.
You guys did end up getting that back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only things we didn't get back, we had a U-Haul trailer, the physical U-Haul trailer, and the case for my bass drum.
Is this a shout out to AirTags, or was this just like pure luck of seeing? Oh man.
Oh yeah.
What an invention.
Big time.
I don't know, obviously Apple, I don't know if that was a thing
for real
prior to that, but salute to them. Dang. Now,
straight up, yeah.
Like, was that over a week span of you guys ended up getting that back, or was it something where it was like, was it pretty quick, like to be able to continue on to the tour?
It was pretty quick. We got it all back. So like it got stolen at like 6 a.m. that day, and we got it all back that night. It was in Albuquerque, and it was on a Sunday, and like all the pawn shops in Albuquerque are closed on Sundays. We found it at this dude's house, and it was like he had like 5 cars on his property, and all of our stuff was like spread out through his cars, and all of us were like, this dude was just waiting until the morning to just pawn all of our shit, and
that's
we got it all back.
I mean, without like any sort of issue or anything like that, just
pretty much, yeah. I mean, like it was a situation where like cops were called essentially because I was like, I'm not getting shot and I can deal with this stuff. Like, it's fine. I don't want to deal with all that. And literally, like, it was such a thing where like there was so much stuff happening in that house. Like, we didn't have to do anything. They just took him out, and they were like, you can come in and just grab all your stuff.
That's insane.
And we're like, okay. We didn't have to press charges or anything because it was such a big
Yeah.
like
I mean,
thing.
I'm not like
It was so
overly
weird.
like to get into it, but it's just like it's such a common thing, to where you're seeing that and cats are out on the road. I mean, for sure, as far as anybody who has, the extra dough, maybe instead of some extra shirts or something to be able to invest in some air tags. Yeah. Wow.
They're cheap too. It's like three for $100, and like just spread them out through a few things. Like it's that easy. We only had three, and we got
Insane.
all of our
Man,
stuff back
that's
with it.
awesome.
So I
All
mean,
right, so
yeah.
Creeping Death. The reason that we're here to do this new record out in June 16th. Absolutely psyched for it. I have to say it's a little bit of a different, like transition into the prior work, and I think it overly emphasizes in a lot of different ways. The initial track that you guys put out, have a video out for. Where this is a little bit of a connection from my understanding as far as your EP that you prior had released. Where do you remember writing for the new record coming about?
Basically, we just started writing the record when like COVID hit. We weren't really seeing anybody else. We were just with our families and going to practice and like that was our circle basically. But the last EP we did and the new LP were all written during the same time basically. Like we kind of like cherry picked a couple songs to do for the EP and then kept working on the LP, but it was all done like throughout just the same era. The first couple like things I remember doing actually were like a couple songs that ended up being on Boundless Domain, and then like later we wrote like a couple songs that ended up being on Edge. But we started like I want to say 2020 like was when
These
we
were
started writing for
separate
everything.
recording processes, right? Like studio sessions, or were these all the same? Oh, okay.
Yeah. The EP and the LP were a separate recording process. We did the EP with Ryan Bram out of Tucson, Arizona, and then the LP we did with Adam
okay.
D.
Yeah, duh. Now that I think about that, obviously there was a different producer behind that too. So was this your guys' first time working with Adam?
Yeah.
Absolute beast.
Yeah.
I can only
He was
imagine he brought out things in all of you that you didn't imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Going into that Adam D session, I felt like I'd never been more prepared for like a studio session in my life. And then like as soon as we started, I was like, I suck at playing drums. This guy is pointing out every little detail that I can't do. This is awesome. And it was great. He got great sessions.
I was just talking about this, today to a friend and talking about, like being able to record, like it's a weird kind of hand in hand, hug in a sense where it's like being able to record with a close friend is like one, kind of comfort, cool. Like we can have this session, but then being able to record with somebody else who, like Adam, who is going to be tough, is going to be on you, is going to be take after take. You then get the product, or the piece, that you guys ended up putting out with Boundless Domain, and it's tight and it's heavy and it's hard. It sounds awesome. I mean, like huge, congrats to you guys, because I could kind of tell, I'm like, man, I can only imagine that he was busting on these guys to get some pretty heavy shit with this.
Yeah, he was. He did not hold back on his comments whatsoever, but it worked. Like he got great takes out of all of us, and like you can really tell a difference. Like
you met him prior to being able to, or working with him in the studio?
Oh. No, I never met him before. Literally walking in the studio first day was the first time we all met him.
What about as far as your setup? So I don't know if there was anything that was different, but I just kind of wanted to go into like the breakdown as far as in the studio there. Maybe even starting with your drums, size wise, and your snare.
So I used the drums that I normally use in the studio. Actually, I have a I think it's 1980. The serial numbers don't like line up on all the forms I've seen, but it's either late 70s or early 80s Ludwig Butcher Block set. They're 6-ply, but it was I used the kit that I have has a 12, 13, 14, and a 16. And in the studio, I used the 12-inch, the 13-inch, and the 16-inch tom-wise. 22 by 14-inch bass drum, and I brought a few different snares, and the one I ended up using was actually my dad's snare. He has a 14 by 6.5 Ludwig hand-hammered bronze, and that ended up just sounding the best in the room, and like it was really dry, but it cut through really well. It ended up just sounding really good in that room, which is what I went through. And I want to say I think the toms are 12 by 9, 13. No, 12 by 8, 13 by
Dang,
9, and then
okay.
16 by 16.
Man. And
I actually don't know
what
what wood they're made of.
what
To be honest with
line
you.
is it again?
It's just it's a late
Okay.
70s or early
All right.
80s Ludwig. The blue olive badge with like
Dude,
the pointed
those things are
corners.
so sad. I've had, a couple of different Ludwigs over the
Yeah,
years, and those things, man, and the durability. Like, how long have you had that kit?
I've had that kit since 2018, and I actually just now I'm gonna use it this weekend for the Fugitive record release show, and then I'm gonna kind of
Oh,
retire
really?
the
Okay.
set because the hardware is so old on them, they're starting to kind of fall apart, and I don't want to
Yeah.
just destroy those drums completely. But I just got a new drum set before this last tour we did. I've never had like a brand new drum set in my life. I was like, I'm getting a brand new kit,
What is it?
and I did, and I love them.
Whoa!
I got some Tom
Holy
Starcrafters.
shit, that's so sick.
Yeah, I saved
Dang,
up and
that's
I splurged.
you
I
have them
love
all
them.
set up and you've been able to play with them and everything too.
Yeah,
Man.
yeah. I used them on the whole carcass tour
Oh,
we just did.
jeez.
They're great.
What shells do they have on them? Damn,
They're the walnut
that's
birch shell,
awesome.
and then it's the a 10-inch, 12-inch, and 16-inch
Holy
toms.
shit. Okay.
So a little smaller than what I'm used to, but the first like day or two, it was like a little weird getting used to the smaller toms, and then like once I just kind of got dialed in and got them set up how I wanted them, like I literally got the drums and the next day just put them in the trailer
Okay.
and we went on tour. Like I practiced with them one time just to kind of tune them up a little bit, and that was it. And it took me a few days to kind of like get comfortable on them, but once I did, like I was just like, yeah, this is it.
Sick.
These are the
That's
sizes I need
awesome.
to be
I mean,
playing on.
do you have anything, for
Yeah.
us drummers, kind of little tips and tricks as far as tuning? Do you have anything that's like a magic go-to for your bass drum or something that you find, or is it just kind of a fine, meticulous moment that all of us have to be in?
Actually kind of funny. I was talking to Dan Wilding about this on the last Carcass tour, and both of us were very much like, we should know how to tune drums really well, and we don't. we were like, I mean, we kind of like get them in tune enough, so we're like, yeah, that sounds good. But it's like, for how long we've both been playing, we're like, how do we not know how to tune drums very well? I think it was like day 2. I was out back trying to tune them. He was like, what do you do? And I was like, honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm just messing with them and seeing if I can find something that works. I got it sounding okay, but like, yeah,
Dude,
I was just like, I
it's
should be
it's
better
the
at this, and I'm
realest
not.
and most common answer that you're going to find. I mean, it's pretty rare, like especially from just even side
Yeah,
conversations. Where I'm like, it's just something that pops up, and I'm messing around with my own drums. I'm like, hey, what do you do for da da da? And they're just like, does it sound all right? It's like,
I don't know.
okay, sick. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
literally.
there was a video somebody introduced me, my buddy John introduced me to recently of Chad from Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was in like the 90s that he was doing like a drum playthrough and kind of going through. And he was talking about the bass drum and the attack side, getting it just barely to where it's like not wrinkled. So like maybe even like hand tight and then like a quarter turn. And then the resonance side,
Yeah.
like a whole turn over hand tight. And I started doing that and I'm like, oh, I don't like put pillows in or anything like that. It's pretty fat and beefy and like, hey, all right, well that works.
Yeah, I I usually have my attack head on that side, just like barely on,
Yeah.
to be honest. I do have a smaller pillow in there. That usually is what I like. I don't want it like too muffled. On that Ludwig kit, I had a huge pillow in there and it was insanely muffled. On the new kit, I just have like a really thin, like a long, slender,
Okay.
like almost like a couch pillow type thing,
Those
and it
combos
works
are gonna be so
perfectly.
sick. Those things are awesome for sure. What about the cymbals
Dude, I
for in the
love them.
studio?
Okay, so I did use a couple extra cymbals than I normally would use, but right now my setup, I have 15-inch A new beat hi-hats. I used three 20-inch crashes. I used a Crash of Doom on like my far left side, and then my like main 2 primary ones, I had a Sweet Crash, and I had a dark thin crash, but it cracked in the studio and I had to go buy another crash. But I bought a K cluster crash. So like half the record is recorded with a dark thin and half the record is recorded with a cluster crash. But they sounded so similar that it worked really well.
Okay.
Yeah, all 20s. Big fan of like 20-inch crashes. Just even using for everything. Like having the same size crashes is kind of nice. And then I I used a 12-inch Splash, but I didn't use it very often. I have a 20-inch Zildjian Earthride that's from, I don't know when it's actually from. It's probably like an 80s or a 90s. But I've been using that for so long, and I've always used that in the studio, and I love it. A 19-inch K China, and then I only hit it 4 times, but I did bring a Zorba.
Oh, really? Okay. I'll have to listen back. I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
I only used it in one song for one like part, and it was just like at the end of a fill. I kind of hit it instead of just hitting the ride, and I thought it sounded kind of cool. But yeah, I brought it. I had it set up the whole time and used it once. So.
That's awesome. I mean, that kind of feels, just like a flex moment of like, somebody having like a cowbell and it's literally like, for one song and they don't use it the whole rest of the sets. And, all right, how long are you gonna do that?
Yeah, I brought a cowbell to the studio too, and I was like, "We're gonna find somewhere to put this on the record." And we never
Oh my god,
kind of
I love that. It's the energy though. You're there. Yeah. You're gonna make it happen. If it doesn't fit, then that's cool shit. What about the pedals? What do you use as far as your doubles?
I have Trick Pro and V double pedals. It's like the Black Widow version. They're like the black and red ones.
Drive?
Actually, shout out to Trick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they are direct drive. When in 2019 we were on tour with High on Fire and Power Trip, and I had some DW 8000s, like the longboard DWs that they used to make, and the hinge broke in like multiple places on the tour. And the only drummer on that tour that had a double pedal was the drummer for High on Fire, and I hadn't really met him yet, and I had to like go like in their green room and be like, "Hey, I know I barely know you, but my pedals just broke. Can I use your pedals tonight?" And he was so cool about it. He was like, "Yeah, like try them out, use them." And like after that show, okay, I don't know if you've ever played like a direct drive versus like a chain drive or whatever, especially like Trick versus some other stuff, but it's like totally different. Like it's a totally different game. And I just like put them on my drums and I was like, "Y'all ready to start?" And we played the set, and we're starting with a song on that tour that had like really fast double bass from the beginning. And I just started I just nailed into it, and I like literally, I think Eric turned around and looked at me, and I looked at him, I was like, "What the fuck is going on right now?" Because it was just it was like I felt like I was catching up on my feet. Like it was weird, but it was a lot easier to play. Like there was a lot more the pedals did a lot more work for me. And after the set, he was like, "Did you like them?" I was like, "At first, no, but like by the end of the set, like yeah." I was like, "I love these." And he was like, "We're gonna be in Chicago in like 3 days. That's where they're from. Like I'll hit them up and see if they can get you a set since your stuff broke." And they gave me like a pretty good discount. They like endorsed me basically right then and there.
No shit.
Got me a set of pedals. Brought them to the show and everything. Yeah.
And they're out of Chicago. Damn. No shit. Okay. I had no idea. Just recently, it was probably 2 months ago, I was at a show that we weren't even supposed to play, and just randomly all of us were there, hopped on to play a set. And I don't know if it was Trick or not, but they had direct drive. And that was the first time, in 20 some years of playing, I had never played. And it was like halfway through the set where I kind of feel like, like kind of how you were mentioning at first. I'm like, I didn't like this. It just feels completely different. And I don't know like what's like the science is behind it to where, and initially when you've played chain drive for so long, where it is the disconnect. But after like playing it, I'm like, holy shit, these are awesome. Sick.
They take a minute to get used to, but it's just because it's so different than what anybody starts out playing. But like once you get used to it, you're like, "Oh wow."
Now, did you have the 8000s for like years prior then, or was there something, did you like play Power or the Pearls or anything like that prior?
I had the 8000s for a pretty good while. I had Iron Cobras for a little bit too, and I do love Iron Cobras. Something ended up happening with those, and honestly, the 8000s were kind of a hand-me-down because my dad really stopped doing double bass stuff and like bought a single pedal version, so he like gave me the double pedal version. And then after like years of touring on them, they just ended up breaking. We actually fixed them kind of recently, and I do still have them. I need to get a new like drive shaft for them.
Man, I love that. What about did you change out skins? Did you do anything different as far as your regular setup for within your drum kit there?
Yeah, normally like live and stuff, I'll use EC2s like frosted or clear, and I ended up in the studio on the record using I think I used Evans G2s, like clear G2 on top, and just I think I might have still had either G1s or EC Rezos on the bottom, For the bass drum, I usually use a GMAD on the bass
Oh
drum,
yeah.
which is like the thicker single ply bass drum head. It
Mhm.
just sounds a little more boomy. I like it a lot. Actually, oh, I forgot about this. We used G2s on the record because that's what Adam had with him. Because I ordered a bunch of heads before we left, and they got stolen off my porch
Oh
before
no.
like 2 days before we left. And I ordered them straight through Diodario, and they actually ended up replacing the order and just sending it straight to the studio. And they showed up like halfway through the first day, which the first day was just mostly setup and tuning. But like, we finally got everything set up and like tuned pretty well because he was like, "I have these G2s. If you want to use them, we can." We threw them on. It's like, damn, these sound
Oh
good.
shit.
And as soon as we got to that point, they showed
I
up.
mean
I was
that,
like,
you know,
of
like
course.
sometimes that little
But
difference, you know, that's something where it kind of like transitions your feel a little bit. You know, you kind of gets you a little refocused. You know, kind of when something like that happens, and you're like, oh, okay, what
yeah,
am I gonna do now? But hey, shout out to having all
yeah,
that stuff on hand.
yeah,
Shit.
exactly. Yeah, no kidding. And it was really cool that Diodario was just like
It's
they were
awesome.
cool about it and they just resent the order like no problem. Um, and also on the snare, I know this sounds kind of crazy. I used a Remo makes like the color tone
Yeah,
P77s that are clear, and those actually are like super dry on the snare. Like they actually like you would think a clear head on a snare is gonna just have so much overtone to it, and those are like insanely
really.
dry. They
Okay.
sound really good.
Have you ever used?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
the Evans is it like a hydraulic head. It almost looks like it's like mesh. You ever seen those? I don't think it's called a hydraulic head now that I
yeah,
said
yeah,
that, but I'm
yeah.
trying to think of what the fuck they're called.
I think the hybrid
Maybe
is
it's
the
a
one that's like
hybrid. Yeah,
carbon
I've
fiber.
had a couple of people that, you know, mention those too.
Yeah,
I've never
yeah, yeah.
understood. I guess I've always had like the coated, so I've never tried like clear or you know different other things. But and then you
Yeah.
mentioned too having the clear head on it was success.
Most clear heads are like super ringy, but a clear head specifically is just super dry. I don't know how, but it sounds
Wow,
great.
wow, okay. So
Yeah.
the initial, you know, the initial piece of this new record that we get, Intestinal Rap, gets an absolute sick video treatment as well. Not to mention a huge highlight of the record, but
Yeah.
something rad about the record is it's not the sickest point of the record. The album is all in all is absolutely radical. What can you tell us about the video treatment
Thank
on
you.
this track and your involvement as far as for the video?
The idea of the video was actually Reese's idea. The only like, as far as like video, like storyline or whatever, like the only thing I don't remember even who suggested doing a live video as well with the Conbury, but for Intestinal Rap, Reese thought up the entire like story behind it and all this stuff. The director ended up finding the spot where we did all the live shots and stuff too, which was honestly just like somewhere in downtown
Oh,
Dallas,
really?
surprisingly. But I didn't really have a lot to do with any of the like storyline or anything like that. The director did all the shots that aren't us playing as like part of the story, or whatever. He kind of did. I'm assuming like where he's from, which he's from Atlanta. Like I didn't know. I knew the storyline. I knew what it was gonna kind of like roughly what it was gonna look like, and then we got it back. And I was kind of worried just because like I know like music videos like when they have an actual story like it can ride that line of being like cheesy in a not good way, but also being like really cool. And when we got the first draft back, I was like, "This is sick! Like this is exactly what we should be having." But yeah, Reese thought of all that. He did a really good job. I kind of just showed up and
Sick.
played the drums for that. Honestly,
I
I
love
didn't
it.
have
I
much
love it.
involvement for
And
that.
it feels like that
Yeah,
was like, you know, the kind of video where being in a band and getting back, you know, like the first kind of like moments is just like, oh shit, like how did this come from just like initial ideas or just, you know, like a couple of people throwing some shit out there and that video is so sick.
yeah. That video came out way better than I expected. Just because like I was so like hands off with it. I'm usually hands on with a lot of stuff involving Creeping Death, and being so hands off on that, I was like, I don't know how that's gonna go. And then we got it back, and I was like, this video
Absolutely.
rules.
Was that
Like
the
this is
first
so
time working
sick.
with the director?
No, he did. He did the Edge of
Oh
Existence.
shit. Okay. How did you
Edge of
guys get
Existence
connected
video
with
too.
him?
Yeah. Black Label
Okay.
Society and like a couple other bands on our label, and like we were trying to find somebody to do a video for Edge of Existence, and I think they just suggested him, and he ended up just being able to work with the
So
budget we had, and we were
sick.
like, yeah, we'll do it. Um, He's really cool though. He's great. We did 3 videos for the new record, and he did all 3 of them. He did the live video too, and the video that's not out yet.
Oh,
That I actually
sick.
don't know when
That's
it's coming
awesome.
out.
Sweet, sweet. So,
Yeah.
and not to give away, too much or, anything, but just to kind of build on, like mentioning to some people, like some of the tracks that are on this bad boy. The initial track, Boundless Domain. What can you tell us about this? Initially a slower build, and then from there, your neck is breaking the whole rest of the album.
Yeah. I kind of I wanted to with Boundless Domain. Not to do with any of like songwriting or anything like that, but I didn't want to release that song as a single because I want like if you're gonna listen to the whole record, like you should listen to that song for the first time and then go into the whole record, in my opinion. But that is probably my favorite song on the whole record too. I love that song. That was also one of the first riffs that
Oh,
AJ brought to the table
sick.
for the band too. Is one of the riffs in that song, and
Awesome,
I love what
awesome.
happened about that as well.
Next out, I wanted to touch on kind of
Yeah,
midpoint, the Parthian shot, and not to
that
mention,
song rules.
as far as like you guys being deaf, you guys, having that, but I feel like this record, and even Edge of Existence as well, like there's always been that hardcore element into it. But this album, for sure, and maybe
Yeah.
even a couple of these songs, that was where I ended up feeling, myself kind of pulling toward them. Absolute ass beater moments in these tracks. What can you tell us about that track?
Yeah. The Parthian shot, that was one of the actually okay. So that song probably changed the most as we like kept sitting on it and doing stuff. That song started off, Trey came to
Okay.
practice with an entire song written. And usually that's not how it works with Creeping Death. Like someone will come to practice with like one riff, we'll mess with it, and then like another riff will come up and we're all there for it. Trey came to practice and he was like, I have this entire song. And we went through it. And at first I was like, it was like kind of weird. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this song. Like this is a little different. Like I don't know if I like it. And like we kept messing with it. We kept changing things. The intro to that song with the toms and stuff, that was like one of the last things we ended up changing on the whole record too. I was like, let's just try this and see how it works. Ended up working really well. And then that was still like one of the songs like going to the studio. I was like, I still don't know how I feel about the song. And then Reese put vocals on it for real. And I was like, oh, okay, this song's actually really fucking cool. Like, I was like, I don't know why I ever didn't like this for some reason. And it wasn't like, I don't know. It was just, I don't even know what it was I didn't like about it. Like, I liked the riffs on it. I think it was just like the like setup of it was a little weird. Like, it was just,
Okay.
I don't know. And it's weird because it's like, in my opinion, it's like listening to it now, it's just like, it is a little different, but it's still like just a classic, like, Creeping Death song.
And
So, like,
there's oh, go ahead.
I don't know.
Sorry. Go
That
ahead.
song, I was going to say, like, that's one of the few ones that, like, I felt like, me personally at least, kept going, like, back and forth with it, not knowing how to feel
Oh,
about it
okay.
for, like, any song Creeping Death has ever written. But now it's, like,
Okay.
one of my favorite songs on the
It's
record.
funny,
So,
when like you'll have times that something just in and of itself will, kind of be, and you're very back and forth, and like, I don't know how I feel. And then maybe even in a context of like a record, you kind of hear it like throughout certain points. And like this track, maybe it was something that maybe even a little bit different, but there's the elements of your drumming, to where like you certainly get into, kind of like flashy moments, fills, kind of different things. I felt like this record was more refined in a sense, but then further into it, I started seeing like different accents and different kind of ghost notes that you're going into, and I'm like, oh, it's still there. He's at
yeah.
it for sure.
I definitely wanted to, like, I felt like with Wretched Illusions or whatever, I was, like, kind of all over the place, and I didn't want to be, like, I didn't want to be all over the place like that again, but I still wanted to, like, have moments where I, like, shined and stuff, and, like, actually, like, I feel like some fills
Yeah.
I kind of went in, but I tried to
Yeah,
just kind of keep it
for
more
sure.
steady
Now, as
throughout.
far as like Trey playing as well, and you mentioned, him coming, to having like having a full track written and being able to speak with him and kind of talking about, his relationship with you. As far as you, like, do you have, just different times where you guys kind of find yourselves going back and forth more just out of his relativity to playing drums, and something, where maybe you're like, hey, how does this feel? Or what do you do? This kind of moment feels a little awkward, like, do you have conversations with him as far as writing?
Honestly, like, you would think that me and him would be like, because he also plays drums, he'd
Mm-hmm.
be like, no, the drums need to sound like this, or no, they need to do this. We're usually
Oh,
pretty like
okay.
locked in, honestly. Like, he'll bring a riff to practice and I'll put drums over it, and he's
Yeah.
like, that's exactly
Okay.
what I thought it should have. Or like we'll try a couple different things, and like we're both very much on the
Okay.
same page when it comes to like that. It's honestly like I said, you would think it would be different, but really like we're both pretty like me, him, and AJ get together and start writing, and like it's pretty
Sure.
seamless. Like it's pretty
it's
easy.
a beautiful thing. For
It's
sure.
yeah, no, it really is. I'm like, I think about that.
Yeah, you have every once in a while where there's like the relationship of like somebody who plays multiple things and then someone who's just kind of honed in on their thing. It's like, no, I feel like, you know, maybe if we kind of went here and not that was where I was going, you know, with you and Trey, but it's always something, you know, to be appreciative, because he was saying the same thing when I was being, you know, able to talk to him, that it's always, you know, just kind of like, I have this idea and you take it, you know, where you feel as far as the writing process.
Yeah, too many people I know have like that version that I'm like worried about having, where it's like we would butt heads when it comes to writing, and I'm so glad we don't.
Beautiful. What about the track "Cursed"? Jesus, this song, hard.
That song's cool. That song, I'm gonna let you know a little secret on this one. That song is the only song on the record that actually has an Adam B solo.
Oh, really? Oh shit!
Yeah, one of the guitar solos has an Adam B solo. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or tell anybody that, but
well, luckily, I think it's the universes of technology who's it's starting to like pixelate this out and starting to cut you out. So maybe it didn't even pick it up, and we'll just keep that secret.
Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know. Yeah, there you go.
That's so sick.
But yeah, that one. So he was like, he's got the producer credit on the record, which like technically means like he kind of helped write it or whatever. And like he didn't really we sent him our songs obviously, and he like gave us notes, and like every song it was just like, try doing this one last time, try playing this drum beat instead, like just something like that. And it wasn't even anything like, you know, he never was like change the entire structure of this song. That song we were very much like, hey, we're having trouble figuring out what to do with this song, like can you give us suggestions? And he kind of helped us with that song. That was really the only song that was like on that record too. But also when he gave us suggestions, he was like, there should be a solo here, and he just put a solo in the fake recording, and we were like, you're doing that on the record now, like you have to. And he did. So
cool. Sick. That's awesome. Shit, I love that.
Yeah.
Lastly, I wanted to talk about Looming. So this is the track right before the finale that you guys recently released as a second single. But Looming as well. Holy shit.
Yep.
Yeah. And what can you tell us about with this track?
That one was also, I want to say that was song like, of like all the Edge songs and all the Boundless songs, that was like song 4 that we wrote or something. Like that was very early on still.
Okay.
Looming, I think, is, other than Boundless Domain is my favorite track. I think Looming is my second favorite track on the record. Very much like, there's one drum part in it where like everything kind of slows down a little bit, and the drums kind of slowly pick up or whatever, like towards the end. And I was very much trying to like hone in on like a slower, like, I don't know if you ever heard the band Iron Age before, but they're a band from Texas, and they have a lot of the like, not fast riff, but like a good steady pace with like a slower drum beat behind it. I was very much trying to hone in on that for that spot, and I like, you know, I'm never going to recreate anything Iron Age has ever done, but I feel like I did an okay job, like just trying to like give a little nod. And yeah, I love that song too. That song has so many parts in it that I love so much. There was one fill in that song that I kind of like just tried out in the studio, and it worked really well, and everyone was like, no, you need to keep it. And I was like, man, I hate doing stuff like that. Like I wasn't really prepared for this. And I do love that part now.
It's funny because I wrote like all these notes. I had all these things, and I've been kind of, like listening through the record just as far as key moments. And then I go and I write all of this up, and I completely somehow even forgot about Vitrified Earth. That song, the latter half, holy moly. As far as
that song's crazy.
An absolute shining moment for the band. If I can give you that congratulatory clap, holy shit. That song, that end piece, last minute, 30 seconds, whatever, holy moly. Yeah, is absolutely heavy.
Yeah.
within the studio, what do you remember as far as, do you remember what the last track was that you ended up recording that was, a wrap on everything?
I think it was Edge. I think we re-recorded the Edge of Existence in the studio, and it's like kind of, it's not going to be on the record, but
Oh,
we were going to use it as like a
okay.
bonus track type thing. I think that was the last one that I ended up recording. I remember the first one was, I don't even know the actual name of the song now. The fifth track. I'm still in my head. It's the working title. I don't want to say the working title out loud
Creators
because it's just
turned
the name
into
of
Prey,
another band. But
okay.
yeah, that one. That was the first one we did. It was the only one we did on the very first day, and we just kind of did it just to try to get something, and we ended up keeping it. Yeah, that was the first one. I think Edge was the last one I did, but I can't remember now.
Sick.
Awesome. But I remember finishing up the drums. I finished the drums on July 4th last year, and we had one more day in the studio after July 4th, and Adam kind of used it to just make sure everything was good and like edit things. But on July 4th, I finished drums, and we all just went outside, and AJ grilled a bunch of food, and Adam brought cornhole, and we played cornhole, ate a bunch of hot dogs and burgers, and yeah, I remember just, and like we were in San Diego, so like fireworks were just going off everywhere. Like it was
awesome.
kind of insane.
How long did you guys end up spending?
Yeah,
was it like a week situation, a couple of days as far as in the studio with it?
For drums, we were there for a week, and then we did drums in one studio, and we did everything else in a different studio, all near San Diego. We did the drums at the studio called Signature Sound in San Diego, which like I walked in and there was like gold records for like Blink-182, Enema of the State, and like the self-title on the wall, and I was like, they recorded this year? What the hell? We did the drums in that studio, and then we did everything else in the studio in Vista, California, where it's just called the Vibatorium, I think was the name of the studio. But it's this dude, he plays guitar in the Used, and it's his studio. Yeah, and we just
there you go. Okay,
his name's Joey Bradford. Yeah. We did, I think, a week at the drum studio, and then I think we did 2 weeks at his studio. Yeah. The drum room that we did the drums in at that studio in San Diego was pretty incredible, honestly. Like one of the best sounding drum rooms I've ever been in. And Adam swears by it too. He's like, I only like recording drums in the studio. Because like Adam records all the Kill Switch stuff, and he'll just record at home. And he's like, I will come to the studio and record drums, and I'll do everything else.
That's insane.
So,
like, it's funny too to find like certain spots where you go in and it's an open auditorium, and somehow like people get a great tone for something. But then you have something like where this room is, I don't know, kind of the layout, but it's like there's something magic about it. I'm going to record everything I can here. Yeah.
That's kind of a similar thing with the Fugitive stuff we did, because like the studio that we recorded in, Blake had recorded some stuff in like the main room of the studio we were at, and when we were going to record the Fugitive stuff, the studio that he had recorded in before was like under construction, so we had to record the drums in the lobby of the studio. But the lobby ended up being like a well-kept, like the lobby just sounded incredible with the drums somehow. And we got like crazy drum sounds out of the lobby of the studio. So like it was just something, it was like a happy accident. It worked so well.
That's insane. Holy shit.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And that was also, I hate to say this because I do like my own drums, but the drums in that lobby were the best sounding drums I've ever played in my life.
What were they? Was it just like some like
insane
kit that you would never expect, or what?
No, it was an 80s Tama Superstar.
Dude, there it is.
Yeah. Like the Japanese, I don't know what they were made of actually, but like the finish on them was like the super mahogany finish. And they just sounded so incredible.
That's crazy. There's, like,
I couldn't believe it.
Even with, recently I picked up, just out of like booking shows and like friends of mine booking shows, like I'll have kind of a house kit, where I'll just like set it up and get a backline or whatever. And I'd gotten, it's a 90s Premiere kit.
Yeah.
And nothing fancy, nothing crazy, but playing the thing, I mean, you look at it and just kind of looks like you knock it over or whatever. It's a beast. Some of the stuff that comes out of the 80s and 90s, and initially you see it when you're younger, and it's like, oh, I need a brand new Pearl or, whatever. It's like, man, the 60s Bloodwing kit that I still have, like, insane.
Oh, I bet they sound great. Premier drums are kind of slept on, dude. I have a newer Premier kit, and they sound really, really good. It's one of the best, the bass drums
Especially the
on that
bass.
kit. It's like a 24 by 18. It's a cannon,
Yeah.
but it sounds
Yeah.
so incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to play on. It's kind of why I never play it. But if I'm ever like, I can lay into
Do you
that thing,
know
and
what
it sounds so good.
what model it is? I think there's like the Janista.
Actually, no, I don't.
Oh, damn.
That's what it is, actually.
So
Yeah.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I just love
Yeah.
drums. You know, it's not necessarily about a brand. It's not necessarily about, you know, like a certain thing. Just a nice drum kit to come by, and a good deal is also what.
Oh, big fan of a good deal. Tell you what.
For us out here struggling with cymbals and,
It's crazy
and skins,
how
and Jesus, spending $75 for drum skins.
Yeah. It's crazy how like when it comes to drums and stuff, like if you just find a good deal, sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
I just can't pass up on this. Like I have to buy it, and it's like something you don't need.
Yeah, you see it. Yeah.
I bought a set of Vista lights for dirt cheap once, and I was like, I do not need these drums, but I want them because they're this cheap. And I bought them, and my dad.
Whoa, Vista lights. That's not something you're gonna see around.
Yeah. It was like
for cheap, at least.
It was a blue 70s Vista light kit, and they were in like they didn't have scratches on them. Like they looked brand new, and I got them for like I don't even remember. It was a little more than like $500 or $600, I think.
Ooh,
but like
shit.
I found them, and I was just like, these are in like scary good, like mint condition. And like I toured with them once, and I was like, I had so much anxiety. Like we would hit a speed bump, and I would be like, my drums are cracked. I can't do it anymore. So
I owned an acrylic snare for a little while, and I always kind of wondered about that. And luckily, it was a pork pie. It wasn't a Ludwig, but I never had any cracks. So, like, you know, shout out to an acrylic drum. But I would probably worry about that too with a bigger, you know, like bass or anything like that. I've never tried to delve into that, but
exactly.
So I mean, you guys have just recently announced, you know, these big tours. You got Enforced. You got who else is on these packages? You have 2 separate ones, right?
Yeah. We're doing a West Coast leg and an East Coast leg. On the West Coast, we've got Year of the Knife, and we have this band called Flesh Rot they're technically from Lubbock, Texas, which is like West Texas, but the main dude lives in Fort Worth now, and I'd like hang out with him a lot. And then on both the East Coast and the West Coast leg, St. Peeler is opening up. St. Peeler is this guy Adrian, who's Reese's brother, who's been playing bass for us on like the last few tours. It's his band. So he's like, our actual bass player Eric is doing both legs of the headliner, but Adrian's still going to be there with his band, so that's really cool. And then on the East Coast leg, Enforced is only doing like 4 or 5 shows, but they're on most of it. And then Upon Stone from California, and then St. Peeler. Yeah.
So awesome. I'm super excited for that. I can't remember if it's coming around Michigan or Midwest area. I know you said it was East Coast, but Chicago or Ohio, I'm gonna have to check out and see if there's anything coming through there. I saw you guys with Extinction AD and Cattle Decapitation, and Jesus, you know, there's certain shows where you see a band and it's like you see it in a certain package. It's like, I don't know if I want to see them. I want that memory forever. You guys killed it.
Exactly.
But
Thank
for
you.
sure. So I'm super excited. This record is awesome. I'm eternally grateful. Liz, who had helped out as far as doing, you know, some sick PR and hooking us up, you know, us up. It's very, very cool. Now, as far as, you know, from here, you guys have the tours and everything. Anything with Fugitive? I saw that you guys are doing like a record release. You got some things coming up.
Yeah, we have we're doing a Dallas record release, well, Denton technically, this weekend, and then next weekend we're doing a record release show in San Antonio. Fugitive doesn't have any tours or anything coming up. We just have like a couple of fest dates. Nothing like super crazy. Our vocalist, Seth, he like can't really tour because he has like an actual like big boy job. So like we just kind of get in where we fit in on anything happening. Hi Reese, I just saw your comment.
No, I love that. That's sick. Yeah, dude, I am eternally grateful. Thank you for the time today. I'm gonna add this up here along with Trey's episode here within like the next month or so, and you know, get some promoting on the record. I'm really excited for it. Can't wait for my copy. Go and pick that up. Support Creeping Death. Support you. Thank you so much, dude. This has been awesome. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Take care. See
Thanks
you,
for
man.
having me, bud.
It's so lo-fi, lo-fi, a whole guy, yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.